Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. This is Julie Duffy from StoryADay.org, encouraging you to be a writer every day, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie from StoryADay here with another podcast for you. This week we are coming into the home straight of the StoryADay challenge for May 2022, and I've been thinking a lot about what comes next for people. Every year I see people have this great outpouring of enthusiasm and creativity and writing, and they write all these stories and some of them go on to get published, and it's a wonderful thing. And every year some of them manage to maintain some level of productivity throughout the next few months and years, and some people don't. So I want to talk a little bit today about one of the things that can help with keeping yourself going after a challenge like this. Now, if you've been doing the full challenge, you might be, and if you're still writing, you're probably experiencing some surge of energy here as you realize that you're over halfway through. Or you might be feeling like you're just grinding out stories and it's difficult and it's not as much fun as it was. But when the month comes to an end, everybody is going to experience this kind of feeling of being bereft. You finish this big project, it's a little bit postpartum, and on June the 1st you wake up expecting to feel excited, and instead you feel a little unmoored. So that's coming. I just want to let anyone know who's taking part in the challenge. That's coming, and I want you to have a plan in place for when it does. And that plan might be to give yourself a couple of days off, to do some reading, to do some writing, to do something completely unrelated to short stories. You might go back to working on your novel. You might take the day to take a walk, whatever you want to do. For people who are doing the fun size challenge this year, I think you've actually got a little bit of a head start on the diehards who've been doing the traditional challenge, because we've been talking about mindset stuff all the way through. We've been talking about setting up your workspace, setting up, capturing ideas, working slowly and steadily through one story, thinking about revising it. And on Monday, we're going to be doing our revision session, a review session for some of the stories that have come in. It's going to be very exciting. I'll be sending out an email invitation to everybody to come and watch that. And yes, there will be replays. But as we go forward, there's a whole bunch of things. And if you've spent this month with me in May writing, or if you're just a listener to the podcast, you'll know that I firmly believe that there are a bunch of different aspects that go into creating a writing life, and that we can't just boogie up to our desks and expect writing to happen, and expect good writing to happen, and expect to have a career as a writer or a satisfying practice as a writer. If you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I've split up the various areas of the writing life into what I call the Iwriter Framework, and I'm going to be talking a lot more about that next week. But all of the letters in Iwriter stand for something. The first one is for imagine, second one is for write, then we've got refine, improve, triumph, engage, and repeat. And what I really want to talk about this week is some of that engagement stuff. I'm going to start with a story I saw in the news this week and hat tip to Publishers Weekly for all the details. There were hearings in the US Congress this week about book banning. And the letter that was read out to the Congress was written by the two-time Newbery Award-winning writer Christina Suntervad. And she felt strongly that writers are being challenged and their books are being challenged for being outside a mainstream audience when they're really not. And it's disproportionately affecting children. 2 million children in almost 3,000 schools are being directly affected by these bans that have happened just in the last year. So she wrote a letter about this, but she didn't just rant about it on her blog. She didn't just, write about it in her diary. She wrote this letter, and then she reached out to other children's literature authors and illustrators and people in the business. And the letter has now been signed by 1,300 children's literature authors and illustrators, including Judy Blume, Rick Riordan, Jacqueline Woodson, Ellen O, whose collection of short stories for kids is on my shelf here behind me, and so many other names that you would recognize. You know, I have books by all of these authors scattered all over my house at various times in my life, and they got together and applied pressure. We don't know yet what will come of it, but it's one of the examples of the way that we can put to rest this idea that writers are solitary creatures in attics, scratching away by themselves and somehow magically becoming successful, magically becoming fulfilled all by themselves, magically having access to publication. And that's not the case. There was a movement a few years ago called We Need Diverse Books. And it's one of the things that's helped to open up publishing to writers of colour, LGBTQ plus writers, trans writers, and people writing about those issues, which are ones that we all should be interested in learning more about because they contain people. So these are the books that are consistently being challenged. 41% of the books that were challenged had people of colour in them. 31% of the books that were challenged had LGBTQ plus characters or issues in them. 7% of the books had trans characters or issues in them. And that's not going to change by one author getting upset or one parent getting upset. It changes when we get together. So 1,300 authors signed this letter, and it was read out on the floor of the US Congress this week in a hearing to talk about what we should do about this. This is how democracy works. We see an issue, we talk about it, we figure out what we're going to change. But those authors, none of them thought that just going it alone was the way to make the world the way they want to make it. Some of the shyest authors I know will turn up for writing sprints on Zoom with me because they enjoy being in the company of other people who are doing the thing they want to do. They enjoy the accountability of it. They enjoy listening in on the conversations, even if they're not talking. And quite often they're leaving comments in the chat when we start to talk. We are not solitary creatures. Another story that I wanted to tell you about, there was more authors that I follow, Chuck Wendig, Delilah S. Dawson, and Kevin Hearn. When the pandemic sort of started to recede a little bit after the big first Omicron wave, they stuck their noses out of the little burrows like Punxsutawney Phil and decided they wanted to get back out on the road and meet readers again. So they did it together. They did a little experimental mini book tour, but none of them thought, I'm going to do this by myself and, I need to do it by myself. They collaborated. And I'm assuming part of that was because when you have 3 authors, you've got potentially 3 times the audience. You've got the opportunity to have crossover with her fans, helping you discover your books for the first time. I also suspect that some of it was just like for companionship, someone to travel with, someone to joke with, someone to lower the stress of getting up in front of a room of people and hoping they buy your book. And these people, I think, have got to know each other as they've gone through the writing process. They've met each other at cons, they've met each other in writing groups, they've come across each other's work and been introduced to each other. And just seeing these little groups of writers get together and support each other is so powerful for all the reasons I just mentioned. I mean, there's the purely commercial aspect of, well, if people like your book, they might like my book. And then there's other benefits, not feeling so alone in a world that doesn't really understand what we do. I think people who don't write a lot don't really understand what it takes to not just write something, but to craft a whole world and all of that. So the companionship and the collegiality of knowing other writers is something that you will see over and over again if you start to read the acknowledgements in novels. You'll see groups of names that you start to recognize, and they're other writers who are supporting each other. And another story I wanted to share, I just saw on Twitter last night. Agent Kate McKean, who, if you're not following, you should be. She has a fantastic newsletter on Substack. She tweeted last night that she'd finished a book she really loved, and she really wanted a book that was just like it. She wanted to read that book again, but for the first time. So she went looking for recommendations in all the usual places, Goodreads and all the places where you can find reviews online. And she sort of put out a call to people, I've just finished this book and I loved it, and what would you recommend that I read? But everybody has different tastes, and she was looking up these books and she wasn't quite finding something that was scratching the particular itch that she had. So she had a brainwave and went and cyberstalked, I guess, the author of the book that she had just really enjoyed. And that author had talked about other books that she had enjoyed, and with this sort of implicit, if you enjoyed my books and I enjoyed these books, you're probably going to enjoy them as well. It's just another illustration of the community aspect of what we do. And there's such a big myth out there that writers are antisocial or asocial or solitary, and that we do it all alone. And we're not. We're constantly in conversation. We need to be in the world, gathering ideas and seeing, what people do. We need to be thinking about, a story as a relationship with a reader. We are in conversation with the literary history that we come from. We are part of a literary canon. I mean, you have books that you read over and over again, books that you admire, books that if somebody said to you, what are the best books in the world? You wouldn't necessarily say, oh, Dickens, this title, and Thackeray, that title, and Pope, and Chaucer. And you wouldn't pick the ones that were on my reading list when I went to university in 1990. And they gave me a list of mostly dead, mostly white guys, all fine, but that's not my personal literary canon. If you ask me who I want to write like, I mean, Dickens might be up there, but it's going to be a very different, unique, custom list. And so as writers and readers, we're part of this reading community. We're part of a literary community that it goes wide today, but it also goes back and forward into history and into the future, hopefully. So that's kind of the point of everything I've been driving at today, is to say that we are not writers alone. You can write on your own. I don't think you can be a writer alone. And it's not something that we talk about enough. And it can be hard to find a great community of writers who share your views, who share your ambitions. You can go to a local writers group and there are people there who are writing the story of their life, and there are people there who are writing their first story ever, people who are working on their third epic novel, and and everybody's at a different stage, and it can be hard to have a community gel like that. I do encourage you to keep looking. I found my first core group of writing friends through a group like that, and then I've expanded it massively by being online, and somehow the people who join the StoryADay community, you're seeing something in the way I run things that makes you think you want to be part of this. And so you are welcome. You're welcome here. If you've been commenting in the comments during the challenge, thank you. That helps to build community. I'm seeing, conversations developing among people. That's how this thing started out 12 years ago. Since then, I've expanded it, and we have the StoryADay Superstars group, which I'll be opening up later this summer. And I have courses that I run. And next week, I'm actually going to be opening up my free masterclass, the Your Writing Life masterclass again. And if you haven't been through that yet, or even if you have, but you were a slightly different person when I ran it last year, which of course you are, I would invite you to sign up for that. There will be a link in the show notes. Sign up and come along and watch me talk about and get engaged in the comments and take the actions that I prompt you to take next week, to think about your writing life and what you need. One of the elements of a writing life, I would argue always, is this community. engaging with other writers, engaging with the industry, engaging with readers, engaging with your history of storytelling. And it's part of what I talk about in that Your Writing Life Masterclass. There's so much more that I talk about in there. So it's a 3-part masterclass, not too long, not too much of an investment of your time, and some little tasks that I will encourage you to do just to get yourself thinking about how you're going to get this writing thing incorporated into your life, because nobody's going to give you permission. Nobody is going to make way and make time for you to do it. It's up to you, and you have to be a little assertive, but there's a framework. It's not just a massive, overwhelming task. I picked up a copy of, you've probably all heard of or seen this Getting Things Done book by David Allen, and I've scanning through it today, and I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, he's basically talking about chunking everything down into manageable chunks, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in the Your Writing Life workshop. It's going to be about how to see your writing life in layers, in chunks, in different ways, so that you understand where you are, what you're trying to do on any given day. So it's a great, in my humble opinion, it's a great exercise to go through that workshop. The comments I've seen on it, people are, it makes them think, it makes them evaluate what they're doing in their writing life and what they want to be doing in their writing life and what they don't want to be doing. So sign up for the Your Writing Life workshop as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, which will be round about now, because I think I'm done. I wanted to tell you those stories to prove to you that writers are part of a vast and wonderful community of writers and readers, and just, people who love people and people who are skeptical of people. And it's just part of being human to share stories. And you are part of that. And I want to encourage you to think about that and not think that you need to squirrel yourself away and get isolated from the world and go and live on the side of a mountain so that you can have time to write. Writing can happen amidst life. It really, really can, and it really, really has to. So engagement was my theme for today. I think I'm done. You can go sign up for the workshop, and I hope you have a wonderful writing week. And of course, keep writing. If you want to learn to write, don't read another book or article. Start writing. I'm here to invite you to consider the StoryADay 3-day challenge. It's a challenge and a workshop that gets people writing and completing stories in just 3 days. And it works. I'm fanatical about getting more and more diverse stories into the world, and I think yours should be among them. If you're feeling the pull to write or level up your storytelling, let me hold your hand through 3 days of short story writing. Check out the 3-day challenge at storyaday.org/3DC. Your stories. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.